Okay, so Pokemon Pokopia, it's a weird one. And I do mean that in the best possible way. Hello everyone and welcome to my Pokopia review. If you find this entertaining or helpful, let me know in the comments and feel free to like and subscribe so I can help grow my channel. So for years, Pokemon fans have been asking for something different, not just another gym badge road trip, not just another evil team acting like angsty teenagers, not just another game where a 10-year-old is expected to travel the country forcing his pet to fight against other animals. Pokopia is different. This is Pokemon slowed right down. It is cozy, it is strange, it is blocky, it is a little bit Animal Crossing, a little bit Minecraft, a little bit Dragon Quest Builders, and somehow still 100% Pokemon. But how does it all actually work? Let's break it down. The setup for this game is wonderfully weird. You play as a Ditto that has transformed into a human, which is actually perfect as this game is all about transformation. Not just Ditto transforming into a person, but transforming the land into a home. Empty spaces becoming towns, wild areas becoming habitats, Pokemon becoming neighbors and friends. It's a wholesome concept. And from there you meet Professor Tangrowth, who informs us that both people and Pokemon have mysteriously disappeared from the land. And of course he's a professor, because every Pokemon game needs a professor at the start. And let's be honest, it's a welcome tradition. But where did everyone go, and why? Uncovering this mystery is the mission that Tangrowth bestows upon you. You do eventually find out, not just through quests, but also through various notepads and diary entries. It's a very simple story with simple storytelling, but that's really all it needs, because the real hook is the gameplay. Now that you understand what Pokopia is about, the gameplay makes a lot more sense. There's no Pokemon battles, there's no leveling up, there's no aforementioned evil baddies trying to ruin your day. You are building homes and transforming the land around you. And if you've ever played Minecraft, then you will have a rather solid understanding of how this concept works. But as expected, there is a distinct Pokemon flavor, and the game doesn't give you every tool right from the start. Oh, no, no, no. In what could be considered an extremely long tutorial, the game will gradually unlock these abilities for you and then give you quests to help you master those new abilities. But it handles this process rather seamlessly and quite cleverly. Each ability is given to you from certain Pokemon after meeting certain conditions, and just like in the main games, you need power points to use them. It's kind of like your energy or stamina bar, but it doesn't automatically replenish. You need to consume food to do that. And if you run out of PP, you can no longer use those moves. The Pokemon you learn from range from Squirtle to Hitmonchan to Lapras, even Magikarp. Arguably the most useless Pokemon of all time, gives you one of the most useful abilities in the game. But there's more to it than just a few abilities. The game has a surprisingly deep environment level system working in the background, which unfolds the further you progress in the game. Once you rebuild the Pokemon centers, the way you unlock certain items and recipes all depends on the environment level, which is largely determined by the happiness of your Pokemon. Juggling the wants and needs of each Pokemon while building and expanding each biome is a mission in itself, which lasts well into the endgame. But getting to the endgame is the whole point. By that stage, you've been handed the full toolkit and the know-how to reshape every environment exactly as you envision. And the possibilities are endless. You've no doubt seen some of the amazing creations from people all around the world, and the game is only 2 months old. Now visually, Pokopia goes for a blocky toy box style. And yes, some people are going to look at it and ask, why does this Pokemon game look like Minecraft got left in the sun? Which is fair, but for this type of game, I actually think the style works. The readability matters more than the raw detail. You need to understand the land, you need to understand the shapes, you need to be able to look at the world and instantly imagine how you can change it. A more realistic Pokemon world might look impressive in screenshots, but it would probably make the building mechanics feel clunky and out of place. Pokopia's chunky style makes the whole thing feel more playable. It also gives the game its own identity, separating it from the mainline games. Pokopia looks more intentional. It looks like a little Pokemon diorama that you can mess with, or even a giant Lego set where you can rearrange the pieces as you see fit. And the Pokemon themselves complement this aesthetic. The world can be basic as long as the creatures bring charm to it. You're not here to stare at its hyper-realistic bark texture with the Unreal Engine. You are here to watch Pokemon live in spaces you created. That is the vibe. Now, the sound in this game is harder to fully judge without sitting with it for hours, but life sims need music that settles into the background without becoming annoying. Historically, Pokemon has been known for its strong melodies and extremely catchy tunes, and Pokopia's soundtrack demonstrates this perfectly, with so much memorable music serenading you while you run around punching grass. This game does not need an epic orchestral score, but it basically gives you one. Now we need to talk about performance, because it is a Pokemon game, and unfortunately that means we do have to ask whether this game runs properly. This is a Nintendo Switch 2 title, which helps. The basic and blocky art style also helps. This is not trying to render a massive realistic open world with thousands of complex textures and dramatic lighting effects bouncing off every blade of grass. It is simpler, cleaner, more controlled, and that is a good thing. And because of this minimalist mindset, Pokopia is apparently locked at a smooth 60 frames per second for both modes. Resolution wise, docked will give you 4K upscaled, while handheld will give you 1080p. The blocky style also means the rough edges feel intentional. You notice the cubes obviously, but that's the point. This is not a game trying to hide its geometry, it is a game built around it. The textures themselves aren't too bad, with the blocks showing enough detail to easily convey the type of terrain that it is. And considering just how many types of blocks there are in this game, that is no mean feat. And that's before we take into account that most blocks can be painted, leading to hundreds if not well over 1,000 different types of blocks. Moving on to longevity, this is precisely where Pokopia threatens to shift from a charming side project to a legitimate crisis for my social life. Life sims and cozy games are not judged the same way as normal games. You do not ask, did I finish it? You ask, do I want to come back tomorrow? That's the real test. Pokopia needs enough long-term goals to keep people invested. More Pokemon, more building parts, better habitats, seasonal events, multiplayer reasons to visit other towns, little surprises that make the world feel alive. The good news is the premise is built for longevity. At this point in time, I've put in well over 200 hours into this game, and I still find myself logging in every day to work on things. The limits to this game are really only defined by the limits of what you can imagine building, and the game's core mechanics do such a great job of ensuring that. In fact, my only real complaint with Pokopia is that because there is so much that's left to your creativity, it can feel a little overwhelming. But looking at bang for your buck, despite the game's steep price tag in some places, it is well worth the money. But let's delve into that further. The game is only 2 months old, but some stores are selling it for about $90 dues. That's Australian dollars, by the way, which equates to about 65 American dollars. Now to me, that seems like pretty good value, especially considering Nintendo doesn't like to reduce the cost of its games, like, ever. So we have all of this, and it's just the base game. With how popular it's been, DLC feels inevitable. More Pokemon, more biomes, more blocks, more dreamlands, and if we're lucky, maybe even more bundles of wheat. So, Pokemon Pokopia. I did not expect this thing to make as much sense as it does. On paper, it sounds like someone threw Pokemon, Minecraft, and Animal Crossing into a blender and hoped the lawyers would not notice, which is incredibly ironic considering Nintendo's track record when other games even vaguely resemble Pokemon. But the more you look at it, the more the idea works. Pokemon has always been about more than just battling. It's about the fantasy of living in a world with these creatures. And Pokemon is finally interested in that part. Not the competitive part, not the gym challenge part, the living with Pokemon part. Building homes for them, creating a town, watching the world become nicer because you and your Pokemon, but mainly you, put in the work. Story-wise, the Ditto setup is strange, charming, and surprisingly clever. Gameplay-wise, The idea of learning from Pokemon to shape the world gives the crafting loop a proper Pokemon identity. Visually, the blocky style will not be for everyone, but it makes sense for the kind of game that it is. Technically, the Switch 2 gives it a chance to avoid the performance disasters of the past, and in terms of value, the potential is massive. This is not just a cute side game, this is a genuine Switch 2 system seller. For me, it sits comfortably among the top 5 reasons to buy this console, because it gives Nintendo something incredibly valuable. A Pokemon game that feels approachable, marketable, cozy, and actually different. It's a little weird, a little blocky, and very addictive. So for these reasons and so much more, I'm giving Pokopia an S tier ranking. Thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Catch you all in the next one.